Thack-A-Nory, 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 Thack-A-Nory.
So welcome to the fifth Thack-A-Nory, which is on connectors, particularly analog audio connectors. It's looking at connectors as a request from Donna, who went, "Oh Ian, tell me about connectors, please." And of course I can never resist a pretty lady, so connectors it is. We'll do more of these. Connectors is just a complete minefield, and as it is, we're going to skim over the top. Analog, because that's one of the biggest minefields there is out there, frankly. And although we're going to a digital world, you are going to come across an awful lot of analog stuff even now. If quite a lot of legacy, but most of inputs and outputs are still analog. And the big question is, why do we have connectors with 3 terminals, some with 2, some with 4? Why such a mess? And to start with, a word about terminology. You will hear me talk about mic level. Microphones only give out very small signals that only travel for relatively small distances. Now, years ago, a louder standard was invented for sending down a telephone line, which is how outside broadcasts were done back in the day, and this is called line level. Pro mixer outputs, for example, they kick out line level. More of this later, because nothing is ever as simple as it first looks. So I'm going to start by looking at a mic circuit. Symbol here for a microphone, symbol there for a mixer. And in theory, it's possible to use just 2 wires, one in each direction, to make the circuit. As an example, here are 2 wires. Roughly the sort of thing they use for telephone cable, not quite. And what they do in telephones is they twist these, so twist those. And this would work at line level, but mic level is so low that that's subject to be interference, so it was decided to protect the cable with an outer shield. And out there, shield is not made of cardboard. Theirs is made of copper, a braid of copper that goes around the inner cables and is connected to earth. And this is known as a balanced arrangement, because as well as the screen, there are the 2 signal wires, one pushing whilst the other pulls. Let's just take the screen away for illustration purposes, and you see one pushing whilst the other pulls. Now, XLR connectors, microphone connectors, they work this way, hence the 3 terminals. The advantage of this system is it's almost immune to interference. The disadvantage, of course, is that it costs in copper, and it's quite expensive to process at the mixer end. And with the domestic world, we always want to cut costs. So what they did in the domestic world was to sacrifice one of those bits of wire. So if we come back to our original diagram here, we've got the push, pull and a screen. What they did in the domestic world was to mix and to combine the screen and the return cable. Trust me, it works. Not very well, but it works. And this sort of arrangement is used by phono connectors and standard jack plugs and that sort of thing. And jack plugs are where it all starts to go horribly wrong, really. Jack plugs is a complete vest of nipers, a stringy vest at best. Before we get on to jack plugs, because most of what we're going to talk about is going to be jack plugs because they are such a mess, just quickly mention in passing other connectors. If you've worked in the PA industry at all, you will have come across the Speak-On connector for connecting to speakers. That's a relatively new one. In the past, jack plugs were used, XLRs were used. And the 5-pin DIN connector. This was a multi-way sound, line level sound connector for tape machines, CD players, into the back of some very high quality amplifiers. Quad use these a lot. And they're now very out of favour. If you meet one of these, just buy one of these adapters and forget it. Don't worry about it. And the other thing you might meet, talking of DIN, the DIN is a German standard. The 2-pin DIN connector, used a lot for speakers on the back of domestic amplifiers back in the day. You shouldn't see that much these days, but you might find speakers with it on, some amplifiers with it on. So having dealt with things DIN, we come back to jack plugs, because that's a real mess. And what we end up with is, when is a jack plug not a jack plug? When it's a jack plug, of course. Well, you stupid. You see, in the old days, things were simple. Jacks were made by the General Post Office, that forerunner to BT, and they were made of brass and were balanced devices, wired tip, ring, sleeve, send, return, earth. These connectors are still in use in some well-known broadcast centres up and down the country, along with their smaller cousins known as bantams. Then the domestic market came along and ruined everything like they do. So they wanted a jack plug as well, but they didn't want it to be made of brass. They didn't want it to be balanced. So they came up with this. The mono jack plug. Many an electric guitar and guitar inputs on amps use these, which was absolutely fine really, until somebody came up with the stereo jack plug, which is almost the same as the post office jack it apes, but is wired left, right, common, the return signals sharing the final connection, as opposed to hot return screen. Following this? Nope, nor am I really. Yeah, but it gets worse. Yep, really gets worse. Because at this point it's not so bad really. Post office jack is balanced, a mono jack isn't, and a stereo jack is just that, stereo jack, used for headphones. That's what this one's connected to. But then, domestic and semi-pro mixers started to come down in price. And the good news was that quality went up. The bad news was that they decided that they too would like to have line level inputs that were not XLR and were also balanced, just like the big boys. But unlike the big boys, they didn't want to use a post office jack, no, because they're expensive. So what did they do? What did they use to solve this problem? Well, they used the stereo jack. Yeah! But this time, wired just like a post office jack. Hot return screen. So now a stereo jack can be a stereo jack or a balanced mono jack. Now it isn't quite as bad as it seems, because you can put a mono jack into a balanced jack input, which I will do there. And not only does it fit, it does actually work. And you can get adapters both ways. I mean, here we have a phono to XLR adapter, for example. Also, you can tell if an output is balanced or unbalanced using a set of headphones. You plug your stereo headphones into an output. There's an output. And if you only hear it in one ear, it's unbalanced. Now, if you hear it in both ears, it could be stereo or it could be balanced. But the writing on the mixer should give you a good indication which way that's going. Because if it says phones on it, guess what? It's for headphones and therefore it'll be wired stereo. Now, four-way mini jacks, they're normally for a microphone connection for mobile phones. It's another load of grief, but that's going soon. Apple's getting rid of that, so we don't worry about that. You can get mini mono jacks. Don't see many of them now. Mostly stereo jacks, wired left, right, common. And you can get adapters. So that's all right then. Everything's fine after all. Nope. A quick few tips to finish. Firstly, domestic line level is 12 or even 14 dBs lower than the Pro version. That is half it and half it again. So sometimes you'll see an input switch on the device to cater for this. Now this NAF line level is sometimes referred to as instrument level. The other problem with NAF domestic instrument level is that although you can stick it straight into the back of your professional mixer, as we did here with a mono jack straight into the back of a mixer, in there. Although you can do that, being unbalanced, it doesn't travel very well. It's subject to interference. Now the answer to this is the DI box. If you work on sound rigs, you need one of these in your personal kit, and you need your name on it. A DI box takes unbalanced inputs and brings them down to mic level. Now it does that using a transformer built into the box, which isolates your precious mixer from Johnny's dodgy guitar. Now, not only does the DI or direct injection box have switches on it to cater for the various levels of signal you might have coming in, it also has an earth lift switch on it. Now don't worry about what position that's meant to be in, just keep on flicking it until the nasty hum goes away. Now modern high quality guitar amps have DI outputs built in. Some work better than others. If it doesn't have an earth lift switch, then you're probably in trouble. Now finally, beware that older mixers and mixer amplifiers, and even perhaps some cheap newer ones, they have unbalanced inputs on their jacks. So this older toy over here, this is a 25 watt battery operated amplifier. This has got mono jack inputs for everything. Line level, mic level, you name it, it's mono jack all the way, mono unbalanced. So you have to adapt to use it. I hope that was vaguely useful. It is a bit complicated. The good news though is soon everything will be digital. Digital Ethernet XLR connector. This is use of a digital snake. So instead of having great big thick multi-core, you can stick, well, I can stick 20 circuits down that, and actually I think it'll take a lot more. So soon-ish, but only ish, you'll be able to forget all I've told you today. Isn't that fantastic? The bad news, however, is that we are analog beings. There will always be some analog going on somewhere, and the great thing about standards is there's so many to choose from.